Hari Om and a warm welcome to all of you. We are very, very happy. The CCMT Central Chinmaya Mission Trust Education Cell is very happy to launch this series of talks. We're calling it the knowledge series of talk exclusively for the KTPI students and teachers. So the first of its kind today is happening. And we have a very, very special speaker here today. And before I introduce, we start the proceedings. I request that Kanishk Prabhu from IB second year from Chinmaya International Residential School to render the prayer. He will be accompanied by Sri Karthik Raghunath on the keyboard and Sri Srinivas Kulkarni on the tabla. And let's welcome Kanishk to give a beautiful beginning to this series of talks that's going to happen. Yes, over to you, Kanishk.
गुरुदेव तवा महनीय कृपा गुरुदेव तवा महनीय कृपा मेरे जीवन का अवलंबन है मेरे जीवन का अवलंबन है बस एक मेरा बल है गुरुदेव तवा महनीय कृपा गुरुदेव तवा महनीय कृपा अज्ञान भरे संशय से भरे विपरीत विचारों से भी भरे अज्ञान भरे संशय से भरे विपरीत विचारों से भी भरे मन के अंधकार को दूर करे वचनामृत से तव बोध मन के अंधकार को दूर करे वचनामृत से तव बोध गुरुदेव तवा महनीय कृपा गुरुदेव तवा महनीय कृपा पद पद पग पग जीवन पथ पर गुरु साथ मेरे रक्षक बनकर पद पद पग पग जीवन पथ पर गुरु साथ मेरे रक्षक बनकर विसरू न कभी प्रेममयी आनंदमयी भवती कृपा विसरू न कभी प्रेममयी आनंदमयी भवती कृपा गुरुदेव तवा महनीय कृपा गुरुदेव तवा महनीय कृपा महनीय कृपा महनीय कृपा बोलिए श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय.
Thank you, Kanish. That was wonderful rendering. I think it has set the tone for this series of talks that's being launched today. And thank Mr. Karthik and Mr. Srinivas for accompanying us and providing this support. Thank you so much. My hearty welcome to all the participants, the teachers from various schools. We have the Chinmaya Vidyalayas, many of them have participated, who are offering KTPI, and we have Amrita Vidyalayam school teachers and their students from various places, from Tuticorin, Nagapatnam, Nettimadai, and Trichy. And we have also teachers and children from the Sri Ravi Shankar Vidya Mandir from Cochin, and the Arya Gurukul School from Kalyan, Mumbai. There's a good gathering here, a lot of children and teachers here. Education Cell takes the pleasure and of inviting all of you for this wonderful talks that are going to happen here. My special greetings to Srimati Sashikala Anantharaman ji, who is going to be rendering the session today. I will introduce her later within a minute. And I'm also happy, very happy to welcome Sri Swami Anukulananda ji, who is the Zonal Director of CCMT Education Cell and the Resident Director of the Chinmaya International Residential School, and also the Yuva Kendra Director for the 5 states in India. I think he has been a person who has inspired me into this KTPI subject by myself. I have to say that we have been conducting different sessions only as inspired by Swamiji and guided by Swamiji. We are so happy that he has taken out time and he's here today. I will request Swamiji just to give a few minutes of blessings to all the children and Education Cell for taking this forward in it's a yajna, it's a knowledge yajna that's going to happen. Children are going to be enriched with the topics that are in the textbook, with expert talks like this of nature, which we are planning to organize. We need blessings of our Puja Gurudev and the Lord. And I request Swamiji to speak few words to all the children and teachers of gathered here.
Hari Om to everybody. Today's world is a world of integration and not differences. So this concept is not new, because in the world of disharmony that we are seeing here, the most essential concept that we as the upcoming generation is to understand is the idea of oneness and harmony. So in the Bhagavad Gita, if you see, we have this concept explained to us as the concept of sattvic knowledge. Knowledge can be of 3 different types. It is said sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic knowledge. Tamasic knowledge is that which sees one part of the whole of the complete as the complete itself. So they see a little part of the entire picture and take that little part to be the entire picture. And in that way, they destroy the entire picture for that small part. The Rajasic people are people who are little different. What they do is they see the entire picture, but they see the entire picture as disintegrated little parts. They don't see the connection between all of them. And because they work with differences, they never get the entire result. So one succeeds at the cost of the other, and ultimately the entire picture gets destroyed. For example, one way to look at the world is as one whole unit. And the other way to look at the world is to look at the world as differentiated nations. No doubt it is important for us to look at the world as differentiated nations, but ultimately the sattvic knowledge, the highest knowledge, is where we see the entire world as one whole integrated unit. Today, there is wildfire raging in some part of the world. The environment of the entire world is affected, is it not? Today, Ukraine is under attack, or different countries are under attack. There is peace disturbed in some countries. The economy of the entire world is at stake. So thus, to have the clear understanding of a united vision, that everything is an integrated whole, is the greatest knowledge that we should have. We have the 2 words we have, one is called science and the other is called technology. Science gives us the principles and technology transfers that into manifestation. So what is the science that we are trying to study is very, very important, because if the science that we study is disintegrated, then the technology we implement will also be disintegrated. It will not give us the ultimate result. Today is the day of specialization. The eyes, we have a specialist. The ears, we have a specialist. The stomach, we have a specialist. For each thing we go differently, but the entire body is one integrated whole. So Ayurveda and the Indian sciences look at the entire body as one integrated whole, and different things happening in the body are nothing but reactions of that one particular issue, which is the balance of the entire system. Like that, the entire world its presence, its land, its air, its water, everything is integrated. So thus to look at architecture as only a single building made of just earth is not right. Because a living space consists of the earth, it consists of the water, it consists of the air, it consists of light, it consists of the sun. Everything put together is a living space. And therefore, the vision of architecture was not just one unit, which is the land, but it was all of it put together. And what is even greater is the vision of having the total Bhagavan as part of the entire architecture, blessing it as the Vastu Purusha also. So spirituality and the vision of divinity being part of our entire creation, our entire system of architecture was what gave it beauty, what gave it divinity, what gave it purity. So thus what was practiced as Vastu Shastra, which is like material knowledge. The material was never disintegrated from the spiritual or the divine. So thus the material knowledge itself became the root for spiritual sadhana. So the architect was a sadhaka trying to reach the Lord through architecture as well. The musician was a sadhaka trying to reach Bhagavan through music. So life became so much more integrated. This great vision of science is what India has provided to the world. Of course, as all of us know, that has gone a little, what we call that, into the shells which are behind, and in front have come different other books. We are so happy that we have great people like our Sashikala Amma, who have been spending their entire life taking those books from the back shelves, dusting it, delving into it, and bringing it back to the forefront of knowledge. If today the world has to be a better place, it is people like them and people like them who bring this knowledge back to us that will bring the world back to an integrated, beautiful place, harmoniously living to bring peace and happiness. So thank you, Sashikala Amma, for being here, and thanks to Chinmaya Education Cell, our Chinmaya University, and thanks to our Shanti Amma, who has been integrating the whole program beautifully and making many things happen for our KTPI students. And to the students, the choice of taking KTPI, I would believe, is one of your best choices that you have made, that you understand what is the essence of knowledge. And with that, when you approach all other knowledges, it becomes holistic, it becomes complete, and it becomes a great blessing. So we wish you all the best, a wonderful life, and great success in your exams and in your future career as well. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. I think there cannot be a better introduction to the knowledge series talks that we are launching today. Very beautifully, very aptly presented. Thank you. We continue to seek your support in all our future endeavors too. For the information of all of you, the National Education Policy, talks the vision of National Education Policy. Even before they start drafted it, the vision with which they started, the vision stays one thing very interestingly is to transform India through the Indian knowledge system. So they've realized it now. We have come far away, leaving the knowledge system behind. We got a lot of Western labels now. So country has already realized it. And so they want to revive a new India with the Indian knowledge system. And I have to congratulate all of you, each one of you, for taking up this as a study. Recently, I had the opportunity to attend the Indian Knowledge System Mela, was celebrated in Delhi. The government of India with the AICTE Council, they had organized this Mela. And we could see there are so many students who are taking internship, doing IKS as an internship in the universities. Universities are being, encouraging children to take up internship working with Indian knowledge system. There were some 100 students sitting there and taking down notes, listening to the various speakers. It was a beautiful sight. That is a step that we have taken today to move towards bringing in Indian knowledge system back. And you are all the pioneers who are studying it. Don't underestimate what you are doing. You have stepped into this. It's going to be a golden opportunity for you to know more and more about it. And in fact, the country is trying to reclaim the glorious past. I can say that. We already had it, we lost it. Now the process is going on, reclaiming it. There are forums happening, educators sitting and talking how to bring back the glory. CBSE is going to do a pilot project, bring the Indian knowledge system into this our education system, and our Chinmaya International School is one of the selected schools for the pilot study. You're going to see more and more what you're studying is not going to be shelved, because many children ask, what will happen if I study? Will I get engineering? Will I get medicine? All the material subjects, the foundation is the Indian knowledge system. Based on that, anything you study will make a lot of difference. With these few words, I request all of you to be very alert. We are going to have a series of talks. This is the first one. The next one we are planning to do on Natya Shastra. Probably within 2 weeks' time, you will get to know about it, and then you can participate. Keep a notebook and pen, note down. Do not miss this opportunity to listen to great people like Sashikala ji, who have accepted to come here. I'm so grateful to her. When I wrote to her, she said, yes, definitely, I'll come and do it for you. And I'm so thankful to you, Amma, for being here. And I have this privilege of introducing Sashikala ji to you. She holds a degree in architecture from the School of Architecture, Madras University. She has researched on classical Indian science of architecture, the Vastu, for over 30 years. And for 10 years, from 82 to 92, she was a student of Sri Ganapati Stapati, a leading authority on the Vastu Sastras, from whom she learned the textual knowledge and the practical field of application. She was part of the team since 1991, making the award-winning film, Shilpi Speaks, that explains the traditions of the sculpture. And her book, she has written many books on Vastu, the Indian tradition of design based on Vastu Sastra, the Penguin Guide to Vastu, and the Path to Harmonious Living books. And she has also translated Sri Ganapati Sapati's book on iconometry, called the Shirpa Chennul, from Tamil into English, under the title Pratima Mana Lakshanam. And Sashikala studies Vastu Sastras extensively, assimilating traditional wisdom and exploring its field application. She and her husband, Mr. CCMT Anantharaman, they have been students of yoga and Vedanta also for the last 35 years. A combination of yoga, Vedanta, and Vastu, she has helped them to move into the position of mentoring young minds like yours to understand and reflect upon the wisdom of Indian tradition. They now are in Nilgiris offering this wonderful service to all of you. And it is a great opportunity and a blessing for all of us at our Vidyalaya Sama to offer, to have you address them. The CBSE Director Academics was to be present here today, but he sent his blessings that he is not unable to be here. He sent his blessing to all the students and appreciated also the work done by Chinmaya Education Cell. So over to Sashikala Amma for the her sessions on the science of architecture. She's going to mainly address about the science of architecture. Yes, Amma. You let me know when I should start the PPT.
Slide. Yeah, I'll
Yes.
tell you.
Yeah.
Namaskaram to all of you. Dhanyavada to Swamiji. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to speak to children. So I never say no when I'm asked. Because I think children at the moment are struggling to comprehend the ancient past and the pulls of the contemporary system, which Swamiji explained very nicely. So there is almost an urgent need for us to integrate both of them. Okay. And whether it happens in my lifetime, I don't know. But I have to keep plugging on at it till I die, because that's the only way in which I know how to bring back whatever I have studied and make it available to others. A small disclaimer, please, when we get into the question answer session, don't ask me things from your syllabus, because I'm not a school teacher. So I'm not familiar with syllabi. What I do know is my subject of Vastu Shastra. The second disclaimer is I'm not a historian. So don't ask me to give you the dates of temples and kings and stuff like that. That is not my area of interest. In fact, I have recommended a person who's a great scholar to Shanti ma'am, that is Chitra Madhavan, who is a scholar, who's an art historian, and she knows her stuff. So next, when you call her, you can ask her all those questions. What I will be introducing you to is, like Swamiji said, the science of Vastu Shastra. Why is it relevant today? What are the ways in which, the scope in which this can be revisited or implemented in your own life? Because Vastu Shastra doesn't mean only building. It also means your inner space and your outer space. The relationship between the inner and the outer is Vastu Shastra. Okay, so one of the critical things to understand, which is based on the fact that I have studied many things. I also have a small knowledge base in Ayurveda, is to comprehend that the interconnected nature of reality is part of your world. So if you don't sleep properly, then it is going to affect your study and your memory. And the reason why you don't sleep properly could be because you're eating the wrong food, or you're not having sufficient exercise. So all these are interconnected. An Ayurvedic Vaidya will test your nadi to check this balance. So when you play games, when you swim, or when you run a race, there is a certain energetic vitality that you acquire. But when you do yoga through asana and pranayama, you actually watch your body. And that is very important. So when you're young, please play games. Please run. It's important. Go for a walk. Play shuttlecock, whatever it is. But also find 10 minutes every day to sit quietly with your body and watch your breath. And when you're doing the movements of asana, very slowly, you are looking at the way the inhale and the exhale is actually affecting your body. Therefore, this ability to bring yoga into everybody's life was part of the tradition. There are many ways in which yoga was brought into everybody's life, whether you're a dancer, a musician, or an architect, or a sculptor. There was a way in which you understood how to use your body, how to be sensitive to your senses, faculties, and how to create something in the world outside using this sensitivity and this alignment. The fundamental of yoga and Ayurveda is alignment. And alignment means bringing multiple or differential things into a state of balance or harmony. So in yoga, they call it the bringing together of the manas, the prana, and the body, sharira. Okay, so all three have to come together. And the more and more and more you work with it, and it starts coming together, you're capable of responding to the here and now. Finally, what does it mean? When I'm asked a question, all my knowledge is available for me to answer that question. I'm not scattered all over the place. Or like poor Karna, I don't forget at that moment. Right? So when you work with yourself with a quietude and a careful breath, there is a possibility that your knowledge will be available for you when there is a need in the world. It could mean exams. So when you go to an examination hall, is it possible for you to do some deep breathing, bring yourself into a state of alignment, and then start writing? Because then all your memorized, all your listened information will come in its appropriate manner. It won't flood you. You won't feel overwhelmed. You won't feel frightened. It will come to you appropriately. Okay. So moving to the subject of Vastu Shastra, how does it affect Vastu? The word Vastu itself has two parts to it. One is Vastu and the other is Vastu. The second is the long A. Okay. Vastu means the object or thing. So if I take this pencil, the pencil is a Vastu. I place it on my palm, the palm becomes the Vastu, or the plane upon which this rests. So it can also be called space. Vastu is the space that upholds the Vastu. It can also be three-dimensional. So my fist becomes the Vastu and the pencil is the Vastu. Then I take the next level. I am a Vastu. The chair I'm sitting on is a Vastu. I am a Vastu. This room is my Vastu. Okay. This room is a Vastu and this house is a Vastu. This house is a Vastu. Bhumi is the Vastu. Bhumi is a Vastu and the universe is a Vastu. So the Vastu texts say Bhumi Prathama Vastu and Prathama Vastu. It is both the fundamental object or thing and the fundamental space. Okay. So this idea of envelope, object and envelope, is actually what physics is also teaching you at a very high level of physics. Everything is actually in relationship between the object and the enclosure or the envelope. Okay. So fundamentally, the principle of Vastu Shastra is saying all things in the universe are a relationship between object and space. Okay. All right. Let's start with the first slide.
Yes.
I'm going to just show you some slides to give you a concept. Before going into the subject, I want to introduce the great architects of the tradition, the great builders. Because more and more, we are forgetting our ancestors. This is Ganapati Sthapati's father, Sri Vaidyanatha Sthapati. He was a great scholar, and traditionally, everybody in all the traditions had to be a Sanskrita scholar. Okay, so he was a great Sanskrita scholar. He knew his astrology. He also was an artist. He knew his music. He was a great expert in music. And he was a great craftsman, which means he sculpted and he built. Okay. He was the first craftsman to receive the national award. Okay, this is very important for you to remember. Born in 1906, died in 1959. So I didn't have the pleasure of meeting him, but I have heard a lot of stories about it. The next one. So those of you who are familiar with Chennai, there is this wonderful building called the Gandhi Mandapam, which is built in a traditional manner. It also has an amphitheater at the back. And I happened to study in a college right in front, AC College. So we used to go there for drawing and measured drawing and photography and understanding sculpture. It's a marvelous piece of architecture. And what is beautiful about the traditional Sthapati or the Shilpi is that not only did they draft it, they also built it with their own hands. I cannot say that about my skill. I can only draft. And I have to give that job over to craftspeople or artisans to make it into a visible form. But these are people who not only can draw, but they can also build. The next one. This is a very, very interesting, this is a very interesting sculpture. Those of you who have been to Tiruvannamalai, to the Ramana Ashramam, this is a sculpture of Sri Ramana Maharishi. Ganapati Sthapati's father, Sri Vaidyanatha Sthapati, was the Asthana Sthapati for Ramana Maharishi. And he made the sculpture, which those of you who have been there, Tatrupam, you feel like as though you're in the presence of a person. It is so alive, so vibrant. So not only was Vaidyanatha Sthapati ji capable of building a temple, but he also could sculpt in a most marvelous manner. Okay, the next one. The second Shilpi or Sthapati is Sri Amritalinga Sthapati. He, just as Vaidyanatha Sthapati comes from Karaikudi area, Amritalinga Sthapati comes from the Kovai area. So he's a person who is from the tradition, great sculptor. Again, once again, Samskrita scholar. He was also a very good astrologer, and he won the Shilpakala Chudamani. Next one. This is a very important work of Sri Amritalingam Sthapati. This is a Mani Mandapam made of a single stone. And he and his team have carved it. Those of you who have had the opportunity of going to Tirunelveli, the temple, the great Nelayappan's temple, has multiple columns. That is, with a single stone, many columns have been created, where some of them are so thin and the space is so small, you wondered how they put their tool through it. Such skill. So this, and please note the chain, stone chain, which is hanging from the sides, it's also part of the single piece of stone. So we are talking about enormous skill. The next one. So let us now move to the great traditions. The marvelous Brihadishwara temple in Tanjavur, built in the 11th century. And here I need to bring in a small difficulty I have with history textbooks. They will tell you all about Rajaraja Cholan. He didn't have anything to do with building it. He was just the money bags. He provided the money. Nobody talks about the great sculptor, the great Sthapati. He was called Rajaraja Peruntachan. His name was Peruntachan, Raja Peruntachan. He was given the honorary title of Rajaraja Peruntachan. His team built this. So whatever vision that the king had, to translate it, to make it into a manifested form, requires enormous skill. And this was a breakthrough. Until this great temple of Tanjavur was built, almost all temples had huge entrance gopuram and small vimanam of the actual sanctum. Gopuram is the entrance, vimanam is what is built above the sanctum. Okay, here the Sthapati has created a short entrance gopuram and a massive vimanam. Okay, so that is very, very important for you to keep in mind, that here the vimanam is very, very large. So the precinct, which is known as your built space, which is your Sthala Vastu or Kshetra Vastu, that is 800 feet by 400 feet. The height of the vimanam is 208 feet. And those of you who have been there, it's extraordinary. The way it moves upward, totally straight. You have buildings today that are built 20 years ago, 10 years ago, which are tilting, which are jagged edged and so on. We are talking about something which has withstood 10 centuries, totally straight. And please note, it had no mortar. All the stones are standing on self-weight. Mortar was never used in stone temples. Okay? And the stones, I believe, were stacked in a 2-kilometer area. That large a space they needed to keep the pieces so that it could be assembled. It's an assembling job. Okay. So what is important for you to know here is not only is there a science and an artistry, there is enormous technology. Any architect of today will tell you he cannot do this. He cannot build it. It is not possible. The technology required to make this possible even today is not available. So you're talking about 10 centuries ago, the capacity of the Stapati and his team to pull off something like this, and they have taken 20 years, 25 years, father, then son, I believe even a grandson worked on it. So 25 to 30 years they have taken, single-mindedly holding this vision in their mind and creating this amazing structure. Okay. Next one. Similarly, you look at Ellora. Even today, the question that is asked is, how did they do it? Because here, it is a totally different thing. It's not cutting the stone and assembling it as the Brihadishwara temple. Here it is cutting and removing a 100-foot rock outcrop. They have cut from the top and come down. So there is this perfect vision of a complete temple complex that has been created from top down without any mistake of the elevation, the section, the way in which each unit is standing absolutely straight. So they have removed and created this marble. So here again, once again, not only the skill, not only the aesthetic sensibility, but enormous technical capacity. Okay, next one. This is an amazing, absolutely amazing Nataraja. Those of you who are capable of going there, this is a small village outside of Kumbakonam called Koneri Rajapuram. And in this Koneri Rajapuram, it has absolutely beautiful bronzes. And the most beautiful is the bronze in the Sannidhi, the Nataraja in the Sannidhi. And tallest Nataraja of that period, including the pedestal, it's 7.5 feet high. Casting something like this would require a huge furnace because it needed 1 ton of metal, copper, brass, lead, gold, and silver. It needed 100 kilograms of beeswax, 2,500 kilograms of firewood, 600 kilograms of coal, 100 kilograms of clay, and a kiln, which was 3 to 4 times the size of this. The heat that would have been generated, just think about that. It would have been set up in the outskirts of the town because it would have required too much of heat. Such a capacity, and this process is called the lost wax process. First, the form is created in beeswax. Then over that, a clay mold is placed. And then it is heated and the wax is allowed to melt. And in the space that is created inside, the Panchaloha, which is the metal. It's called Panchaloha. That metal is actually poured inside. And then the outer form is broken. The clay mold is broken and removed, and the inside is polished. The greater the amount of copper and gold, the more golden will be the final product. So some of the early bronze of the Chola period are very golden in color because they have a lot more copper and gold. But as time goes on, the gold part would have reduced because it would have been very expensive. The copper part would have been reduced. You'll have more brass. Brass is actually a combination of tin and copper. So all that, zinc is also there. It's a combination metal. So all that would have been increased. Gold and copper would have got reduced. But in this period, 10th and 11th century, which is the high point of the Chola period, you have the best quality alloy of the metal, which is known as Panchaloha. It's an alloy. Okay. Next one. So now, what is the principal base, which I already introduced to you? What is the principal base for all your technical systems? Technical Shastra. In my understanding, they can actually be placed into three parts. Yoga being the most critical, because all of them require a certain path of yoga, karma yoga, dhyana, bhakti yoga, whichever yoga, jnana yoga, you need a certain path of yoga. Vastu is the path in which the inner form is manifested into the outer form. So the imagined form within yourself, in your consciousness, takes a form outside in the world. And for that, there has to be a balance between the person who is creating, his control over the material, and the team that is helping him, and then the final product. Similarly, Ayurveda is where the three gunas and the three prakritis are balanced, so that you are in alignment, and it helps you to move from a state of ill health to a balanced wellness. It doesn't work with your symptoms, but it works with the disease. That is one of the most important aspects of Ayurveda. It's not like taking a pill for a headache. It's like finding out why you got the headache in the first place. A headache can be a product of bad digestion. It could be a product of bad posture. It could be a product of tensions and mental stresses. So you have to look at that. And that is why Nadi Shodhana. Through the Nadi, the Vaidya will be able to figure out where is this source coming from. And then you are taught how to take some medication, how to look after your exercise. There is a little bit of purging also that is done, so the toxins are removed, sometimes even vomiting, so that the toxins are removed. And then diet. Your average allopath doesn't know anything about diet. In Ayurveda, they're very strict. You have to follow this regimen, and then there is possibility of healing. Chikitsa. Chikitsa can only be a product of looking at all aspects, which means dealing with the original cause and not working with only your symptoms. Okay. Similarly, Vastu is about understanding the need of the client, understanding the context, the land on which the building is going to be placed, the energies that are in existence there, and then creating the form. It's not like taking a photograph from some architectural magazine and copying it. It's not like that. Okay. So it is a complete understanding of the energy field. And that means, how do I understand the energy field? Unless I have worked with myself, for which you need yoga. If I am sensitive to my energies, when I'm angry, what am I creating? When I'm happy, what am I creating? How do I receive from the world outside? How do I offer to another? When I am conscious of all this, then what I create can offer wellness, health, healing to the occupant. Okay, next one. So now we move into the subtle body. How do I become conscious of myself? Which is absolutely the first step for any of the systems. There is the shariram or the body. There is the prana or the breath. There is the manas or the mind. Okay. So when you work with the body until the body intelligence is awakened, when you work with the breath so that it becomes long and quiet and totally disciplined, then the moods, your feelings are actually in balance. When you work with the mind through dhyana, then your thoughts and your attitude, your personality, the way you look at the world, the practices that you have for the self and for the world outside, yama and niyama, all of them get into a state of balance. So this constant working with the self, which has to be every day, there is no running away from it. It has to be a part of your daily practice. Just like you brush your teeth and have a bath, you work with yourself in listening to the voices of the body, listening to the voices of your feelings, listening to the voices of your mind. I'm angry. I feel discriminated. All that I need to look at it. I cannot put it under the carpet because someday it will burst. I have to be conscious of all this. Okay, the next one. Next slide, please. Yeah. Then the awareness of the body, mind, and breath also percolates into understanding food that you take, your personal habits, hygiene, then your lifestyle. Watching TV, working with the computer for 10 hours a day is not going to give you good health. So what is your lifestyle? How are you balancing your educational demands and the need for good health? And then how do you act in the world? Do you have a dharma in your action? Am I looking at what am I doing to the environment? Am I conscious of when I hurt somebody? Am I conscious of the himsa? Or when somebody hurts me, am I conscious of that? And then all the herbs that are there in the environment. Am I aware of them? Am I bringing them into the food? Am I looking at organic food products? Am I just absolutely dull to all this and saying, I just want to make it in the world. I want to be a success. I want to be great. I want people to honor me. Or am I looking at all these aspects of my everyday life? Next one. So now we go into the most important fundamental principle of the Vastu Shastra. After having given you a fairly comprehensive idea of the world and the self, now we are moving into the critical aspects of Vastu Shastra. This comes from a small story, Upakatha from the Mahabharata. This is where the forest Dandakaranya has been burnt, and out of Dandakaranya comes this person called Maya, who is a sculptor and an architect. He comes from the forest. He comes from the forest and says to Arjuna, please don't destroy me. I have lived in this forest for some time. I will be able to assist you, and I can build beautiful structures for you. And I will build whatever you want in Indraprastha. So he says, I am Maya. In the Ramayana period, he is the father of Mandodari, who is the wife of Ravana. So literally you're straddling two epics. So he is also the Asura architect, which means he is also ageless, right? And he says, when I create something, it will have three aspects: Bhogadyam, Sukhadarshanam, and Ramya. All three will be available when I create a form. Bhogadyam is usefulness. What's the point of a glass if it doesn't keep water? So Bhogadyam is very important. I can say old houses with courtyards was beautiful, but today's needs are different. So can I create an old patterned house, which also is capable of looking after my needs of today? That will become Bhogadyam. Sukha Darsham or Sukha Darshanam is aesthetics. Not just Darshanam actually literally means only the sight, but here it means all your senses are being pleased. Aesthetic pleasure. So textures, how do you feel with the texture? Are there good smells coming from the plants and the flowers? Are the colors pleasing to the eye? Are the ratios and proportions of the built form capable of giving me well-being? All of this is part of Sukha Darshanam. Ramya is a very, very critical one. Ramya or Ramyam, if you take Ramayana, Rama is called Rama because he offers delight to his parents. Ramya, he offers delight. So that space, built space, which is capable of offering you delight, is known as Ramya. Okay, so for a person to create a place of beauty, which is capable of offering all infrastructural needs, which is also delightful when you occupy it, can be done only when there is a balance between space and form. And the person who's doing it is creative. And the team which is being used is actually efficient. Okay. Next one. Then we move into sculpture, iconometry, iconography and iconometry. There are two parts to this. So Pratimamana Lakshanam is the iconometry, where you're saying that every form that is sculpted has a relationship between every part. Okay. And every part is in relationship with the length of the face. This becomes the basic measure. And then there is symbolism. How do you know it's a Buddha? What are the elements or the symbols that is employed by the sculptor to give you a feeling that this is a Buddha, not Mahavira? Okay, so there are certain symbolic meanings that a Buddha will have, which is different from a Mahavira. The proportion of the body is the same. The naked body is the same. but the alankara is different. So you have this prabha behind. You have the jada, the curly head with the crest. You have the hastas. You have the long ears. All these are considered to be part of the Buddha. Okay, next. This is the most critical. Now we are coming to education. Pedagogy. Your pedagogy is completely taken over by the Western model, which is a linear model. You learn so much when you're 10, you learn so much when you're 15, you learn so much by the time you're 25, and then you're put out into the world. And at each point, your recollection of what you have learned, your memory is being tested. Your understanding, your application, your experience, your attitude towards the world, none of this comes into the pedagogy. All that, the assumption is that your parents or the home will take over. But the home now no longer gives you all this, right? Parents are too busy, right? But in the traditional pedagogy or parampara siksha, the attitude towards learning was totally different. It was holistic. First, you learned about the material. You learned about the energies. You learned by handling things so that the knowledge was embodied. Through your hands, you understood material. And then the cerebral knowledge or your pedagogy was taught to you after this. First was the experience, and then was the information. Otherwise, what happens is information comes in the way of your experience, which is happening a lot with young people today. They've already downloaded and done a Google search. So they have some 20 different ideas in their head, contradictory ideas, but they have never experienced anything with their body, with their hands, with their nostrils, with their tongue, nothing. So all this conflicting information is just sort of battling with each other. There is no real experience of it in the world outside. In Shilpa tradition, a child who is about 5 or 6 is initiated. I will go into music and dance next. First, I will tell you about the Shilpa tradition. The child is initiated into the tradition. And how is the child initiated? He goes, it's always a he because it was a completely a masculine system. They did not teach the girls. So this boy went into the yard where sculpture was being made, buildings were being built, and they were working all the time. They started working at 8 in the morning. They closed shop at 6 in the evening. So the child wandered around from one person to the other, watching what they were doing, assisting in small ways. When they were marking, the child would sharpen the charcoal. When they were cutting, the child will run with the chisel to the furnace so that it can be sharpened again. So between 6 and 8, the child was only assisting, watching, and learning. By the time the child was, say, 9 or 10, one of the shilpis in the yard would say, "Come on, cut with this." So the child will start hammering a little. The child will start marking a little. Then in the evenings after 6, the shilpis with their stapati is the person who's in charge of the team. It's just an honorific title. The stapati in the earlier days will hang a lantern, randal, And in the lantern light, they will read the texts. They will chant the shlokas from the texts. And the child will be listening. They may even have a bhashan, a discussion on what is the meaning of a particular shloka in connection with a particular sculpture that they were making in the yard. Okay. And then they would also, during holidays, go and visit other old temples and sculptures. The child will go with them. He will listen to their discussion. So by the time he was 12, his hand skills would have got developed. By 14, 15, he will be sculpting the smaller sculptures. And also getting more and more information of the texts. Okay. So this is a remarkable process. If you take a musician, similar kind of thing will happen. First is sadhana, riyaz, learning the Sharadi Janta Varsha, actually learning the notes, using your voice, understanding the relationship between the notes and your body parts, because this is part of the prana column. Which part of your body is vibrating to which note? Developing the skill to move between one note to the other. All this will be done in the beginning. And only then the meanings of notes, Rishabha, Gandhara, and the position of the three positions of the Ga, two positions of the Madhyama, and all that will be taught only afterwards. First, you're just listening, you're absorbing, you're working with the notes. Right? Then the whole process is an embodying process. And it's a process of rasanubhava, which means appreciation, experiencing. Okay? Next one. We'll need to also look at puja and ritual. This is not separate from the rest of the stuff that I have talked to you about. There is a whole generational movement which says puja and all is old-fashioned, old hat. Ritual, all blind belief. And this has come from the Abrahamic religions, which have attacked systematically for 500, 600 years, all that they call blind belief, and insisted upon the monotheistic systems, where there is only one God, one way, everything homogenized. You cannot have this multi-layer, nothing. They're destroying all this. And consistently they've been destroying. Now it's become global. This whole Hindu phobia has become a global thing. Everybody is attacking you. So you feel very reluctant to reveal that you love doing puja and you love doing ritual, or you run away from it. But the reality is, puja and ritual is a continuation of everything else that we spoke about already. The environment, nature, life form itself, life and death, the cycle of life and death, all this is beyond your rational mind, your cognitive understanding. Why is this happening? Why is there a storm that is going on in the Arabian Sea right now, which is affecting everything? People are getting flooded. We have no idea. The fury of nature, the benevolence of nature, the beauty of the environment. All this you can only say, wow, adbhutam. That's my only response to it. My rational mind cannot actually fathom the incomprehensible. So what do? I celebrate it. Puja actually is a celebration. So you take in the Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. Anything, you can offer anything. You don't even need a symbol of the divine. Or it can be an elaborate ritual, which is pure theater actually. You go through an elaborate ritual, it's like watching a theater performance. Everything in its place, so much color, so much light, so much of sound, so much of smell, fragrance. It's an amazing experience. So this is called catharsis. You require a certain kind of catharsis to be able to deal with the ups and downs of life that is beyond your comprehension. Somebody loses a dear one. Mother passes away too young. A child passes away too young. How do I deal with this grief? Where do I take my sorrow? The only way is in the community, in the family, when we celebrate a ritual, in spite of the death, in spite of the sadness, in spite of the grief, you're saying the bounty of nature, the divine is always beautiful, always there for me. Through that catharsis, the grief in a person actually is put to rest. It's a kind of a analytical process. Okay, so puja and ritual is a very important component of this whole thing. Right, next one. So let's look at some beautiful architecture. This is in Mount Abu, the absolutely splendid kind of workmanship on the marble. It's almost like lace work. To achieve something like this requires very, very great skills in the individual and fantastic skills in the team. Okay, next one. The Nataraja, the symbolism of the Nataraja. This is also very important because for a lot of people, they actually have no idea. It's one of the most evolved forms that has been created. And every aspect of it has a meaning. The proportions. It's actually placed in a Navatala or a Dashatala, which means 9 times the face length or 10 times the face length is the height of the body. And the reduction is also measured carefully because the body of the divine is in a bhanga. It's in a flexion. So when there is a flexion, the height will be reduced. Stability on the right leg and the movement. Stability in the left leg and the movement. What does it mean? There are very rare instances where the left leg is resting and the right leg is in movement. But usually it's the right leg down and the left leg, the left leg down. No, I'm getting confused. The right leg down and the left leg in movement, and the left leg down and the right leg in movement. Okay, there are the 2 aspects. What does it mean? The left side is the feminine, the right side is the masculine in the Ardhanari. This is Purusha and this is Prakriti. So it is said, when Purusha is in balance and Prakriti is in movement, then nature is created. When Prakriti is in balance and Purusha gets into movement, it is the time for Pradaya. So this Pradaya is not constantly spoken about. But there are, I believe, a couple of Natarajas where the Pradaya is denoted. Then each of the arms. Why do the gods have more than 2 arms? That's because the other arms are showing the multiple capability of the gods, multiple directions that they can perform in. So you will have 4, 8, 16, all the way to 32, I believe. But 16 is up till where you can actually see in physical forms. And each of them holds a different symbol. Each symbol has a meaning. In the Nataraja, the Damaru or the Udukai denotes the creation of sound. The flame denotes the creation of light. And then the Abhaya Hasta and the Dola Hasta. Dola Hasta means just the total relaxation. And then the garments are flying. That's because the Lord is spinning. Okay. So all these mean, and he's standing on Muyalakan, Apasmaran. That also has a meaning. That's not a child. A lot of people are saying, oh, he's stamping on a child. No, 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 no. That is a monster. That is also an asura, Apasmaran. That is wrong knowledge, avidya. So the Lord is saying, if you want divinity to be in movement, you have to hold under control wrong knowledge. Misapprehension has to be put under control. It cannot ever be destroyed. Because there are moments you're feeling fully alive and there are moments you're not. So that wrong knowledge has to be held in control. Okay. So this symbolic part of the Nataraja is very important. Right? Next one. Similarly, there is this fabulous sculpture of Gomateshwara in Shravana Belagula. One stone, how did they carry it up? How did they manage to sculpt something so large? What are the tools? What is the scaffolding that they have erected? So all these are questions which still to this day don't have really answers. We can only surmise that these were people who were capable of achieving enormous things because of their personal sadhana. So each person was at the height of their capability and their group efficiency. So when you have both personal sadhana and group efficiency coming together, there is a geometric increase in your capacity in the world outside. You get into a state of siddhi, which is what I suspect these people were in. Next one. So you have the beautiful architecture in Nepal, mostly in wood. Next one. And then you have the humble village origins, where you have the terracotta horses, you have the mud houses, and then you have this elaborate column, which is a single line. You start with one line and you come back to the point, right? All this is part of this tradition, not just the classical systems. Today, unfortunately, we are separating them as folk and classical. It was never like that. They were all integrated. The common folk contributed to the wisdom of the classical system. Classical system was available to the common folk. Both was there, and there was mutual learning with both. Okay. Next one. I think that, yeah. Finally, you have the Vastu Purusha Mandala. There's a story here that there was this yaga that was going on in Devaloka, and there was this energy that came out of the Yaga Kundam. And this energy was very powerful, Vastu Purusha, and the Devatas were very happy because they could harness this energy. But then, just as all energies, it went out of control and started, rather than creating, it started destroying. So when it started destroying, the Devatas got very scared, and of course they ran to Brahma and said, "What are we supposed to do with this?" So he said, don't worry. We will push it onto the earth, face down, and we will sit on his back and release him only when he is in a state of quiet. So 45 devatas are supposed to have sat on his back with Brahma in the center, in the Nabhi. And there are certain days of the year when the Vastu Purusha is supposed to awaken. And then the devatas turn him over and he touches his divine aspect. His asuric aspect is under control. He becomes now divine. And then he's supposed to sit up very happily and partake of food. And then finally he eats his tambulam. And that is when he is supposed to be the happiest. That is when you do the Bhumi Puja. When Vastu Purusha has been satisfied and he is happy, you do the Bhumi Puja and you can start your work. So it's actually a story to assist you in looking at the potential energy of earth, of the land, of Bhumi, and how we can make that energy available to us for our lifestyle. Okay, next one. That's it. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview. Okay,
Yeah, we'll
because
Since-
this
then
is
we'll
not a
take
subject
feedback.
that you can comprehend very quickly. There
No,
is a
Ma,
lot.
it was amazing. I like person like me could understand everything, and I think it applies not just to KTPI. Any student, I think when they understand the whole thing, how learning happens, how it works, I think it's very beautiful. It cannot work in isolation. That they keep doing wrong things and overindulge, and then they want to study. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, it won't work.
Part of that. I think it was so beautiful the way Amma explained it. I think it was amazing. It's really an amazing session that we went through. It's a yajna that's happening to know about our own country, what way we can contribute. This is, I think, a beautiful way. I once again take this opportunity to thank Sashikala Amma for her wonderful contribution. You have made a beginning, Amma. I'm sure it will go
Thank you.
in ways ahead. It will have a long journey. Hariom. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hariom. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hariom.